If you've ever had a beautiful moment in your life and felt the urge to hide it, not because you weren't happy, but because it felt too personal to expose, this might explain why. Some people don't share their joy easily. They downplay it, protect it, or keep it completely to themselves. And it's usually not because they're cold, distant, or ungrateful. It's because somewhere along the way, they learned that being visibly happy can feel strangely unsafe. And once you understand that, this quiet behavior starts to mean something very different. If you've ever noticed that you hide your happiest moments a little, not in a dramatic way, but quietly, you don't post about them, you don't talk about them too soon, and sometimes you don't talk about them at all, there's usually more going on than simple privacy. Some people keep their pain private because they don't want to be a burden, but people who keep their joy private are often protecting something even more fragile. Because sadness usually asks for comfort, joy attracts attention, and attention can feel risky. It doesn't look like a big deal. Someone gets good news and barely mentions it. They achieve something and change the subject. They fall in love with a new part of life, but they hold it close, almost like it needs shelter. From the outside, it can seem reserved, detached, maybe even a little strange, but psychologically, it often means this person has learned that good feelings are safest when they stay hidden. You can see it in small behaviors. They downplay what they're excited about. They wait before sharing anything meaningful. They tell people after it's already happened, not while it's unfolding. If something is going well, they become quieter, not louder. And if someone praises them, they might smile, but immediately soften it with a joke or a disclaimer. What looks like modesty is often something deeper, because joy is exposure. When someone shares disappointment, there's usually social permission for that. There's room for sympathy, but joy can feel more vulnerable. Joy can be interrupted, judged, envied, dismissed, or taken personally by other people. So for some people, keeping it private becomes a way of keeping it safe. And a lot of this starts early. Some people grew up in environments where positive emotions were not really held with care. Maybe their excitement was ignored, maybe it was mocked, maybe it was met with suspicion, like they were being too much, too proud, too loud, too visible. Or maybe every time something good happened, it was followed by tension. A parent's mood changed, someone became critical, someone found a way to bring them back down. So the nervous system learns something very specific. Joy is not a neutral state. Joy makes you noticeable, and being noticeable does not always feel safe. That creates an adult who can feel deeply but express selectively. Someone who has rich inner reactions but edits them before they reach the outside world. And that editing becomes automatic. They get good news and instantly think, let me not say too much yet. They feel excited and then immediately contain it. They protect happy moments before anyone has even threatened them. Not because they're trying to be mysterious, not because they don't care, but because some part of them still associates visible joy with emotional risk. That's not coldness, that's protection. And sometimes it's also about control. Joy has a way of making people open. It loosens the guard. It makes someone more spontaneous, more hopeful, more trusting. But for people who learned to survive by staying composed, that openness can feel destabilizing. So they keep joy private, not only to protect it from other people, but to protect themselves from what joy does to them. Because joy can make you hopeful, and hope can make you vulnerable. This is why some people are strangely more comfortable talking about what went wrong than what's finally going right. Pain can feel familiar. It has structure. It gives them a role they understand. But happiness can feel less predictable. It can feel like something that could be taken away the moment it becomes visible. So instead of fully inhabiting it, they manage it. They dilute it in conversation. They make it sound smaller than it is. They hold back details. They tell the story with a flat voice so no one can feel how much it matters.
They keep their joy at arm's length, even from themselves. And here's where it gets interesting. The real reason is often not insecurity in the simple sense. It's not always low self-esteem. It's not just shyness. A lot of the time, it's a relationship to visibility. People who keep their joy private often have a complicated bond with being seen. Not seen when they're struggling, seen when they're lit up. Because being seen in joy is a different kind of exposure. It reveals what you love, what matters to you, what makes you feel alive. And once other people can see that, it can feel like they have access to something deeply personal. That's why these people may look calm on the surface while having very intense inner lives. Their joy is real. It's just inward, protected, sometimes even hidden from the people closest to them. There's also another layer to this. For some people, private joy is tied to guilt. They feel uncomfortable being openly happy around people who are struggling. They learned to monitor themselves, to not seem insensitive, to not create distance, to not accidentally make someone feel left behind. So they shrink their delight before anyone asks them to. And over time, that becomes part of identity.
They become the person who doesn't make a scene, the one who stays level, the one who doesn't need much attention, the one who experiences things deeply but quietly. That identity can look mature from the outside, and sometimes it is. But sometimes it's also built on an old belief that emotional visibility has consequences, so even joy gets filtered through caution. You can feel this especially in social settings. Someone gets a new opportunity, a relationship, a breakthrough, and instead of announcing it, they test the room first. They scan people's reactions. They notice tone shifts. They sense who might minimize it, who might make it about themselves, who might become distant. And if the room doesn't feel emotionally safe, the joy stays hidden. Again, that's not overreacting, that's pattern recognition. Some people became very skilled at reading atmospheres because they had to. They learned that emotions don't exist in isolation. They ripple through relationships. They change dynamics. They affect how others respond. So by the time they're adults, privacy doesn't just feel like preference, it feels like emotional intelligence. But there's a quiet cost to that. When joy is always kept private, a person can start feeling strangely detached from their own happiness, not because they don't experience it, but because they don't fully let it land. They don't let it take up space. They don't let it be witnessed, and being witnessed is part of what makes experience feel real. So they may have these beautiful, meaningful moments and then quickly move past them, not savoring, not expanding, just containing, almost as if expression would make it less pure, or more vulnerable, or more temporary. And in some cases, private joy can even become a form of emotional superstition, a quiet belief that speaking too soon will ruin it, that naming happiness invites loss, that sharing good things exposes them to disappointment. So silence starts to feel protective, almost ritualistic. It sounds irrational on the surface, but emotionally, it often makes perfect sense. If someone has lived through enough unpredictability, they may stop trusting good things while they're still happening. They wait, they hold back, they keep joy small until it feels stable enough to survive attention. But the deeper pattern is this: they are not hiding joy because it means little to them. They are hiding it because it means a lot. The more precious something feels, the more carefully they may guard it. And that can be confusing to other people, because we often assume that what matters most is what gets expressed most openly. But for a certain kind of person, the opposite is true. The things that matter most are the things they protect most quietly. Their excitement is soft-spoken. Their attachment is private. Their happiness is often invisible until it becomes permanent enough to mention. This is why people like this can be misunderstood. Others may think they're emotionally flat, hard to read, or unaffected. But underneath that restraint is often someone who feels things with an unusual depth.
They just don't trust every space to hold it properly. So the behavior is not random. It's a style of emotional survival, a way of preserving what feels delicate, a way of making sure the outside world doesn't step too quickly into something that still feels sacred on the inside. And once you see that, a lot of quiet behavior starts to make more sense. The delayed announcement, the understated reaction, the way some people smile like they're hiding sunlight, the way they protect good news until it becomes old news, the way they can be full of gratitude, relief, excitement, even wonder, and still say almost nothing. It was never emptiness. It was caution around what feels tender. It was memory shaping expression. It was identity built around keeping certain parts of the self untouched by unnecessary noise. And maybe that's the real psychology of people who keep their joy private. Their happiness is not absent, it's guarded. Not because they don't want connection, but because some part of them still believes that what is most beautiful can also be most easily disturbed. Once you notice that pattern, you start to understand that silence is not always distance. Sometimes it's reverence. Sometimes it's self-protection. Sometimes it's the only way a person learned to keep something meaningful fully their own. And that awareness changes the way this behavior reads. It stops looking like detachment. It starts looking like history. Once you see it, you can't unsee it. If this explains something for you, there's more to uncover.